Well, the better you grow, the more you get. Having solid SOPs in place are going to make sure you have no wasted movement in your garden and you have optimal output.
I think that makes the most sense, because one of the things that I used to ask Sean when he ran a garden for me was, what are you planning on getting out of each room? What's your expectation? Why are you picking this strain? Why are you picking this cultivar? And then most importantly, how do you expect it to end up in the harvest stage? And I think too often you have people planting a cultivar or a strain because they think it would be a good strain to have, and they're not looking at whether or not that strain will work in their particular garden. They're not looking at whether or not it's just more than a name. How will it actually process on the other side, depending on what product you're turning it into? How difficult is it to buck and trim? Those are all things that need to be considerations before anything even goes into the garden. And then you can start talking about inputs and how do you manage all the things that you really don't want to have to worry about, because once you put that plant in, you've got enough to worry about on your own. You shouldn't be worrying about some of the inputs.
That's a great point. And I think knowing some background on the genetic lineage as well can kind of help you make an educated guess as to what might grow together as a group. And in turn, grouping those strains together, short ones with short, tall ones with tall, and so on, you can have more consistency in your garden.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about the inputs, right, so you think about your substrates, you think about your nutrients, you have standard lights in each of the rooms, but you know how to adjust them. But it's not like you go in and change the lights every single time you do another planting. So when you think about your substrates, your nutrients, you should have a similar mind to it, which is, what are the most consistent products I can get? Where's the quality going to be the same? So I don't have to worry about having to overcome deficiencies because this go around I have high EC, or that go around my pH is off, or I'm using washed instead of buffered. You want to try to have the most homogeneous set of products and inputs you can have, and then that allows you as a grower to really start to amp up and kind of flex a little bit in terms of what you can and can't do and drive the result in the garden, as opposed to just being a passive observer.
That's a great point. We can't let the weakest plant in the garden dictate our actions. Yep. So kind of knowing your groupings as to what might be a higher feeder or lower feeder, in turn can lead to more consistency in your inputs with feeding.
Yep, and then the SOPs Sean mentioned are key. You've got to have the documented SOPs so that everybody in that garden is aware of them, everybody knows what to do, and then also give them the authority that when they're looking at things and they're reacting to things, they know what to do. They're not just waiting for one person to come out of an office and make a ruling and then go back into that office. They're out there in the garden all day long. So I think they're sharing the knowledge, sharing the SOPs, and making sure everybody understands what they're driving towards makes the most efficient outcome.
Absolutely. Trusting your team and giving them the autonomy for to the people that are there day in and day out. They really get to know those rooms and how they behave and how the plants behave, and it's almost like a hive mind. Yep. Everybody's a set of eyes and ears, and that's just a really great way to get input on what moves need to be made, what works, and what needs to be pivoted a little bit.
And I think if you go to the business side for a second, and there's always that argument, roots versus suits. I think there, asking your team questions. It's real easy to run a model and to say, I need to make this margin and whatever, but that's not how you run the business. That's what happens if you run the business that particular way. Is that margin even achievable? Talk to your team, talk to your subject matter experts and your growers out there. Ask them questions, push them a little bit. Don't be afraid to push them. But I think they're just sort of asking the questions, why are you picking this particular strain? How many turns do you expect to have? What kind of yields are you looking to have? And there's always going to be a reason, right? It's not just about always having the highest possible yield. There are certain saturated markets where that might not make any sense. You don't need more flour, you just need better, more consistent flour. So I think they're making sure everybody is aligned in the organization as to what it is that your ethos is. What is it you're trying to do when you're driving product? Are you just constantly turning over to the latest, greatest thing that comes out? Or are you actually trying to create that scarcity feel to it, right? You're going to have a stable of core core strains that you're going to rotate in and out, in and out. You're not just going to flood the market until the market can't take anymore. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think having strong genetics and great quality is really a key driving factor, and the good SOPs to get that consistency is really the way to go. If you're going for yields, hey, you know what? You check all the boxes, the yields are going to follow. But when you target quality, terpene profiles, and cannabinoids, you're really going to get something special.
And know what you're going to turn it into, right? If you're growing for the lab, that changes what you want to do, right? If you're growing to have that good flour, that's going to change what you're going to do from that perspective. So not every product is going to be the same. It's not going to require the same. And even within the lab, are you going for straight distillate? Are you going for cold press? What are the different things you're going to be doing? So I think that's where understanding what the end game is, then the growers can do what they do, the folks in the lab can do what they do, the folks in retail can do what they do. Everything starts to line up really nicely.
That's a great point. We've had scenarios where we're growing for solventless extraction. So essentially it's an oil field, and we're really terp farming essentially. Whereas say with a smaller indoor facility, we're really trying to target high-end, more small batch style type of output.
So it's really, I think to kind of wrap that up, it's really about being intentional. It's about sharing information, good lines of communication. It's about understanding why you're making every decision. There's a certain amount of feel to all of this, but understanding what the end game is, what it is you're trying to achieve, and then what's the best way to achieve it as a team. You do all of that before the plant goes into the ground or into the soil, you're going to end up a lot more efficient than if you're just playing catch up and you put a bunch of plants in a room and you're trying to see what happens.